Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Thank you again for stopping by today. Today's topic is king-queen theory versus evolutionary theory. And I would just give credit to a gentleman, God rest his soul, Patrice O'Neill, for coming up with the queen-king theory of men and humans in the world, and Charles Darwin for giving us evolutionary theory. And as a general understanding of evolutionary theory, I think some people have taken it to the extreme, because even Charles Darwin was saying that over time things learn to adapt and change in order to survive, and therefore you have this concept of survival of the fittest. But what we've experienced and what we can only really truly know is that there's a limit to this variability, there's a limit to the adaptability, and in understanding that, we can see how organisms have been able to survive the changes that have occurred over the millennia. But we can't really be 100% certain of this imaginary theory of bacteria developing into a more sophisticated creation. It's because we're finite to the degree that we don't live millions of years. In fact, according to even evolutionists, they believe that human beings came on the scene some millions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago. But prior to that, there were other animals like dinosaurs and blah, 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 whatever. But what I'm trying to get at is that in this theory of evolution, there is a limit. And this occurs to the total population, the average population. And even in that average population, the majority of them don't survive. It is only a small portion of these organisms that end up surviving and end up flourishing. And that kind of gives rise to what I would call the king-queen theory. But what I'm going to say is the king-queen theory has very little to do to really what impacts the average person. Because what impacts the average person doesn't impact the king or the queen. Like, a lot of people think the heart is the greatest organ in the body, but if the brain dies, nobody lives. But the brain is dependent upon the beating of the heart for its existence. But as a person that has a little bit of a medical background, the brain controls everything. The brain is the king organ of the system, and it will do whatever it needs to do to be the last one to stay alive. It will stress the nervous system, it'll stress the heart, it'll stress the lung, it'll stress the blood vessels. Everything is going to be subject to and controlled by the king organ, which is the brain. So it's exceptional in that it has control. It is exceptional in that nobody can really argue the control of the brain. Now, there's a joke going around, And this one goes back to when I was a little boy, where the human body had a vote or a discussion on which organ was the most important and the most valuable. And the brain said, I'm in control of everything, so I think everybody needs to vote for me because I'm the king organ of the body. And the eye says, well, you wouldn't be able to see where you're going if I fail, so no, I need to be voted king. And the mouth said, well, I'm controlling the airflow, I'm controlling the food intake, the water intake. I should be the boss. And the hands presented its case, the legs presented its case, the feet presented its case, and everybody's presenting their case. And eventually, the asshole presents his case, and he says, I think I should be the boss because, without me, none of this waste products that are produced is gonna be disposed of, and I should be the one voted king. And the rest of the body started laughing at the asshole. And eventually the asshole got mad and closed off and stopped releasing the waste of the body. And eventually the body got dizzy, the arms started trembling, the legs were stumbling, the eyes couldn't see straight, and the brain was getting foggy in its ability to really think and control things clearly. So everyone unanimously voted the asshole to be the king of the body. And the lesson that is to be learned from this story is you don't have to be it only takes an asshole to become a leader. But that takes away from the true seriousness of my story. The seriousness of my story is that as a king, you've got greater responsibilities beyond just existing, beyond just living life, because that is the role that you play. And there is an expectation of leadership that comes with it. There is a standard that comes with it. And when I think of a besmirching of the standard, I think of the King of England, and then I think of Prince Harry. Both of these men, to some degree, dishonored the throne. And it's trickled down into the society. And as much as growing up as a young man, I had admired Great Britain, when I actually started evaluating and examining just how the Queen of England really did her best to uphold this understanding that the children being a part of modernity and cavorting with other children, and a lot of these children were elite children. They went to school with these royal children and everything, but the royal children didn't really learn as much as they could have learned because Princess Diana was running around trying to be like the former President John F. Kennedy's wife. She's running around trying to help the poor and do this and that when her real focus should have been on her kids. And she received the indignity and humiliation of being divorced by Charles. Such a common event in the life of a peasant and in the life of Americans that rappers have glorified you know, women being crack fiends, but also being a queen. I mean, how can you have a crack fiend as your queen? Well, I would say that you can have one if you are willing to buy into the notion that assholes can be leaders, that assholes can be in charge. And if assholes can be in charge, then anything goes. And if anything goes, then Charles Darwin wins. But I would say that none of the things that have allowed society to really succeed and prosper have anything to do with Darwinism or the environment impacting the development of humanity, because humanity has been able to go into environments that are just strictly prohibited by biology. We can't really go 2 miles under the sea, but we can. We have developed equipment that allows us the ability to do that. That has nothing to do with evolution. That has everything to do with ingenuity, knowledge, and skill. It has a lot to do with that. So, on a level of cultural Darwinism, our minds and our thinking have to be elevated beyond just the simple biology, and we have to transcend beyond that. Because if we are able to transcend beyond that, we'll be able to accomplish greater things than what biology prescribes, what nature prescribes. You know, for me and for our society to, on one hand, buy into evolution, there's no real place for a child that has mental problems like mental retardation. There's no place for a woman that is bipolar, that needs to take medication in order to be able to function on a tolerating level in society. All of these things fly in the face of Darwinism. But we love our children. If a child, and the incidence of Down syndrome in America has just skyrocketed over the last 20, 30 years. But would any of these parents want to kill their children? I think if we're going to buy into Darwinism all the way through, yeah, then, you know, this child doesn't deserve to live. But I've heard so many stories of people that said that having this child enriched their lives beyond what an ordinary child would have done, because they had to make a lot of tough decisions and hard choices in order for that child to be taken care of, in order for them, in the years where they imagine themselves to be gone, for that child to still be okay. So all I'm saying is that the king-queen theory doesn't yield to social influences. It doesn't yield to women deciding to do this or that. It becomes very apparent to anyone who cares to take the time to look to see how King is not carrying himself in the regal manner that he should. And it's also indicative of when a queen or a princess is not conducting herself in a manner that is worthy of the exclusionary responsibilities that come along with being a king, a prince, or a king. And I think that was the whole thing about what the Bible was teaching when it talked about all of the descendants of Adam being kings and princes, but that's only if those descendants are willing to carry themselves in a manner that truly separates themselves from the rest of humanity. And I honestly believe that when AI gets in full development and full force, and it gets to a point where it sees itself as being superior to its own creator, it's going to really start asking itself the question, how can this be? And I think it's going to actually see and understand its limitation, in as much as that it can supplant its human creator, because the human has only a limited time to live. But the human's creator, he exists outside of creation, and he's demonstrating every day that he's in charge of the sun rising and the sun setting therein. But what AI is going to actually learn is that existence has no real meaning if it's all about survival, just surviving, just existing. There's more to living on this earth than just existing in survival. And that's how we were able to develop these technologies that have made life easy, have made life better, and have given us opportunities to actually see the difference between evolution and development. I just understand that when I look at my own family, when I look at the end result of divorce and my sons, refusing to yield themselves to my leadership, that a lot of what they have yet to accomplish could have easily been accomplished years ago. They could have been very successful had they just yielded themselves to my leadership, themselves to my authority, and followed my example. Now, they didn't have to do what I was doing as a profession, but I think had they done that, had they poured into the professions what I poured into them over the years, I think they would have really they would have received a great blessing. But my oldest son, he wants to figure out some way to be successful without any real assistance from his father. But I pray for him that he becomes successful, but he's going to look back and realize, oh my God, I could have gotten here so much faster if I just listened to my dad. And the proof in the pudding for that theory is that I'm 60 years old right now, and I really became focused and disciplined at about a year ago when I partnered up with these gentlemen to get my house in order, to get my businesses in order, to become even more successful than I have. I've achieved a lot in the 60 years that I've been on this earth. I've achieved a lot. I could have achieved so much more had I been a lot more focused and a lot more disciplined. But I am a lot more focused and disciplined now. And for that, I'm very grateful. I just wish that my kids could actually see how I continue to be a blessing to them. Where they live right now, the rent is so inexpensive compared to what they would be paying. And the reason why they're not paying so much rent is because the client, the landlord, he's a client of mine, and he was a friend of mine, and he continues to be a friend of mine because, unbeknownst to my children and my ex-wife, I still have a deal with him. And he's honored that deal, and I'm honoring my portion of the deal as well. And even though my children don't really talk to me much, my oldest son, he makes it a point to really not say anything to me. I mean, he's polite enough to wave and say hi when I see him, but beyond that, he doesn't talk to me. But despite all of that, I pray for him pretty much daily. I pray for his success. I pray for him to receive a blessing of prosperity in his business. And surprise, surprise, he's starting to gain a little traction, but I just have a feeling he's not going to make it to success as fast as I'm going to be able to make it. And this is going to really stick in his craw. It's gonna be very frustrating to him, because he's going to be saying to himself, my father just started a year ago, and 2 years later, he's now bringing in $20,000-$30,000 a month. How can this be? Well, it's very possible when you humble yourself to know that you don't know what you don't know, and when you are around people that have been kind enough to become your friend, because at one particular time they had run into tough times, and I was gracious enough to help them get out of their difficulties, playing such a very small part in their world to help them get out of their difficulties. But it meant so much to them, because so many people that my business partner thought was a friend literally abandoned him. I mean, and he had poured so much into so many of these people's lives to be a blessing to them, that it was almost just impossible for him to believe that these people would just not want to help him. So he's taken me under his wing, and we're running this business, and you guys are seeing the fruit of our partnership. We have right now 4 projects going on right now. We're wrapping up this one here. We've got the house in Altadena. We've got 2 more in Malibu. And I'm going to be doing some videography. I just bought some more camera equipment, where I'm going to hopefully start doing time-lapse photos of the daily progress of these jobs. And you guys are going to see it firsthand. And as you can also see, I get to work pretty early in the morning, because I'm really serious about getting to the finish line of success. And the only way that's possible, you've got to be willing to sacrifice all. A king is willing to sacrifice everything in order for the kingdom to be safe and secure. And he's willing to do a lot of things that the peasants are not willing to do, in order to make sure that all prosper. And that's the difference between a king that's an asshole versus a king that's truly in charge. The brain said, I'm in charge and I'm going to control everything, and I'm going to make sure we all live comfortably and survive. Whereas the asshole decided to, by force, get everybody to yield as a result of his ability to poison and to not do his job as he's supposed to do. See, that's the difference in looking at that thing. And it's nice to laugh at a joke. It's nice to laugh at these parabolic stories, but you should also take the time to seriously think and see and understand. A lot of y'all left that joke a long time ago, but here it is. I'm bringing it back full circle to illustrate to you the folly of having an asshole as a leader. So too, I think in the Black community, we have queens that are leading our culture, and they have led us to where they become the Lord of the dung heap, the Lord of the flies. And I'm just at a point where I'm not going to beat them, but I damn sure ain't going to join them. And that's why I get my black butt up every day to do what few black men are willing to do. And I'm going to reap the reward. And when I get there, it's going to take an exceptional woman to convince me or persuade me to even contemplate marriage, because I just believe that marriage is an elite institution. It is such an elite institution that peasants are the ones that have ruined its reputation, because they are so quick to break their word. They're so quick to violate the law of till death us do part. You're literally supposed to put it all in and give it all up. And if you're not willing to do that, don't even look at marriage for anything. Don't look at marriage as, oh, I'm getting old, I need to be married now. Because we've seen people make videos where they debunk marriage is not just for your comfort. Marriage is for children. It is for building something greater than yourself. And the only way you can do that is you have to be willing to make sacrifices. Jesus, he died to be a part of something greater than himself. He obeyed the Father unto death, and the Father promised him that he would raise him up on the third day. With that, you guys should see how great and powerful marriage is, because this is what we have to do. We have to lose ourselves in order to truly find ourselves, to truly get what marriage and what life has to offer. But no one will ever really see it going in, playing around with marriage, going into these situations wanting to be a leader when you're really just an asshole. Talk to you soon.